while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. Chris will be back tomorrow. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. Got open lines for most of the show. And we'll also take your messages on the WBSM app chat as well as soon as I log into it, which I'm about to do right now. Okay, we're in. So I'll also be taking your messages on the WBSM app chat if you want to send me those there. So good show ahead for you today, or at least I hope. I'll let you be the judge. There's a few things going on. There is the Georgia Senate runoff between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. That's the Senate, Senate majority's already been decided, but it's going to decide who has, the balance of power in the Senate, and it's also going to, I think, give each party a better, leg up in the 2024 elections when the map really opens up for Republicans and Democrats have to play some defense in 24. So we'll be getting updates with that. The polls closed in Georgia about 8 minutes ago. They closed early in Georgia, earlier than us at least. They closed at 7. So we'll get updates with that. Be able to call the race. I do firmly believe Raphael Warnock will be reelected and sent back to the Senate for a lot of reasons, which we can probably get into a little later, or now if you want to, at 508-996-0500. But we're going to have Council President Ian Heroux call in for some council postgame. They've got an important ordinance in the city council. I want to talk more about that later, about pay raises for city workers. We're going to talk more about that later. Arthur Hirsch in the New Bedford Light has a really, really good column on the whole pay raise issue and really breaks down, what the mayor was proposing, how he came to those figures, and what the city council is proposing and how they came to those figures. So we'll be talking with Council President Heroux as soon as the meeting's over. He'll give us a buzz and let us know how that ordinance went. That was something that the mayor came on our show to talk about, on Tim's show to talk about. Making sure that New Bedford has a competitive salary for a lot of these non-union positions that really don't have, aren't paid as well as other municipalities. New Bedford's having a hard time with staff retention because of that. So we'll get into that with Council President Heroux later. But open phone lines, 508-996-0500. I did want to start the show with a story that I thought was encouraging. This really should be par for the course, but this day and age in politics, even local politics, it's encouraging to see. I was midday, I was on social media, and I saw on the Bristol County Sheriff's, the actual government Instagram account. So not Sheriff Hodgson's Instagram account, but the one for the sheriff's office itself. there was a picture posted, and the picture was of Sheriff Hodgson sitting at a table in a diner, and across from the table from Sheriff Hodgson was Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux, sitting at the same table. So they had breakfast in Attleboro today. And apparently, and when I saw this, I had to, I immediately, first thing I do is I text John Darling at the Bristol County Sheriff's Office. He's the public information officer there. And I found out actually he's going to remain the public information officer when Paul Heroux takes over, which I'm happy about. I really, John's an easy guy to work with. And I'm happy he's staying. So, when Heroux came on a couple weeks ago, a lot of people asked questions about what, staffing changes and retention and all of that. And he said, basically, I'm not going to come in and just start firing people. He's not going to make any major personnel or program changes. And it looks like, he's staying par for the course with that. So, because I asked Darling, hey, are you staying on? He said, yes. So I'm actually really happy about that because he's easy to work with. He's a good public information officer. So anyway, I text him and I text Mayor / Sheriff elect Heroux just to ask them about the conversation that they had, because from my understanding, Hodgson and Heroux have been in the same room exactly 2 times ever. And one was that breakfast, right? And the other was the Bristol County Sheriff's debate. So that we had here in studio. Those are the 2 times that I'm pretty sure the 2 times that these 2 individuals have been in the same room together. And you'll remember that if you remember the debate. If not, you can check it out. It's worth checking out, even now that the race is over, because it's pretty entertaining. But it was vacuous. It was intense, and being in here, it was intense. I mean, I wasn't. We were just trying to basically. Chris and I were just trying to sort of be a conduit for all of the energy that was just being projected out by both of them. It was just a lot of really intensity, I'll say. So I had to know how this conversation was going. And so I asked both of them, how'd the conversation go, right? And so they both responded pleasantly. They said that there's more details on WBSM.com. I have a story up, and you can check out the column if you want on WBSM.com on the WBSM app. If you have the app, you probably got a notification about it. But there's a picture of them sitting at the table. It's at this breakfast place, I guess, called Morin's, which, from my understanding, is a popular breakfast place in Attleboro. I got to tell you, I have seldom paid attention to Attleboro in my 33 years here in Bristol County. The only times I've ever paid attention to Attleboro is when I was playing Attleboro High School or Bishop Fien in football. And so I don't know a lot about, I went to the courthouse a few times. I don't know a lot about Attleboro, but apparently that's a popular place, I guess. So that's where they met. Apparently they discussed they discussed both of their experiences in corrections, because obviously Sheriff Hodgson was at the sheriff's office for 27 years, and Heroux worked in corrections at the Philadelphia jail and for the Massachusetts Department of Corrections prior to becoming a state rep, and then mayor and all of that. And so they talked about some of the leadership challenges that they've faced, that Hodgson as sheriff and Heroux as mayor, and how they've navigated those, right? And I guess Hodgson had told Heroux basically about some of the challenges he's going to encounter as sheriff, and so they exchanged those kind of stories, found that common ground there, and they found that common ground there, and apparently we're very complimentary of each other, because what Heroux said to me was the first thing that Hodgson said when I saw him was congratulations. He said he was very cordial, and they both talked about, this was interesting, how rumors, what Heroux said, we both discussed how rumors are endemic in this business. So I guess that's probably a callback to, a lot of the campaign vitriol that those two were sort of discussing. It was a really acrimonious campaign. There was a lot of poison in a lot of those discussions, and they talked about how talking about how rumors are endemic in the business is probably, I'm guessing, a reference to some of that campaign speak. Hodgson said the quote that Hodgson gave to me was, the future of the Bristol County Sheriff's Office is in good hands. That's a stark departure, obviously, from a lot of the campaign talk that he's done over, and Heroux too, right? A lot of the campaign talk that they've done over the course of the election. And so he said it's in good hands. And they said there's going to be a smooth transition. They said the next step basically is for Heroux to go to meet with the department heads. And basically tour the facilities, tour Ash Street, tour the Dartmouth facilities over there at the House of Correction and I'm sure the annex over there across the street. So once they tour those facilities and all of that, Heroux will be sworn in. State law says that the sheriff has to be sworn in the first Wednesday of January. So that's January 4th. So Heroux will submit it. He already submitted his letter of resignation that designates him to be leaving on January 3rd, resigning as Attleboro mayor January 3rd at 11:59 p.m., which is basically a minute before he assumes the office of sheriff. And then he gets sworn in, I believe, by Bill Galvin. I think he gets sworn in by Galvin. So they're in the work, like I said, they're apparently in the process of doing that. The last time I had Heroux on, he said that he hadn't had a chance to speak with Hodgson. He had spoke with Darling, the public information officer, but they hadn't had a chance to speak with Tom Hodgson. It looks like they've had a chance to speak, and they were very cordial and complimentary. The meeting apparently was about 2 hours. It was about 2 hours that they spoke, Heroux and Hodgson. So they both said that. They both confirmed that to me. It was about 2 hours. So it's encouraging, like I said, based on how acrimonious that campaign had gotten and where it ended up, where they end up. It's encouraging that they're both putting all that stuff behind them, all that acrimony and all of that rhetoric, and rancor. It's good that they're putting all of that behind them and focusing, because this is an immensely important job. You're running the correction system for an entire county, There's about 700 some odd people being held at the House of Correction, but, cycling through, there's probably, thousands a year that are being held at the, because people come and go, being held at the Bristol County House of Correction. It's a major job in local public safety. So it's good that they're moving past that and working on transition. It would have not been good for Heroux in the county if he wasn't able to access Hodgson and the prison, and good on Hodgson for doing the same thing for basically just putting all that stuff behind him and then going on to compliment him, Heroux, and saying that the sheriff's office is in good hands. That's starkly different from what he said during the campaign, and I think it just shows that Hodgson is, and I said this during the campaign, even though I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, that he's really believes in the job and he believes in the importance of the office. He's a true believer, right? He believes what he's doing is right. But I think it demonstrates that by him, ensuring an amicable transition with Mayor Heroux to become Sheriff Heroux. I think it demonstrates that he really cares about the future of that office, that being the sheriff's office, is is really important to him. It was more than just a job title. It was, it was something that, an organization that he had, and a culture that he had cultivated for 25 years. So he's really invested in the future of the Bristol County Sheriff's Office and, ensuring that the corrections there run smoothly. And it seems like he seems to feel comfortable passing the buck to Heroux, or at least even if he isn't, he's willing to say that he is, because he wants the people of the county to feel like the people who live in Bristol County to not, feel on edge, feel at the edge of their seat. And I think that's a good testament. I think that's a testament of good character on both their parts. So that's a story. You can read more about it on WBSM.com. Again, I think it's encouraging in a time where there is a lot of polarization and acrimony around campaigns. I mean, some campaigns can get real nasty, but during a time where there is a lot of acrimony around campaigns and a lot of polarization and a lot of, second guessing of election results. And I never thought that was going to happen to begin with. I think there was a lot of people said that, like, "Oh, are you going to contest the election and all that?" to Hodgson because of his Trump connection. But I was like, that didn't. If you know the sheriff, it's totally out of character for him. So, I never thought that was going to be an issue. But it's good at a time where election results are being contested, right, for no reason at all. There is a lot of polarization. There is a lot of acrimony, a lot of pretty horrible things being said on both sides of a political campaign. It's good that there's two candidates at least here in the most acrimonious race in the Commonwealth. Without a question, this was the most acrimonious race in the entire state this year. It's good to see two candidates putting all that behind them and really looking ahead to do the work for the people that they committed to serve. I thought that was really encouraging. So, again, there's more on that in WBSM.com. You can see the picture of them at the table, at the breakfast table. It's certainly a different visual than you'd expect after the campaign. But again, I think it's a testament to true professionalism in politics. Heroux and Hodgson are experienced professional elected officials, and they're acting accordingly. So I think that's really encouraging, and I hope they're the model for campaigns around here going forward to act accordingly, right, after an election. Even no matter how poisonous it gets, there's still doing the job, and afterwards, the public service for the people that you committed to serving. And so working together, especially in a local election, in the best interest of those people is how you make for a better society. It sounds kind of trite, but it's true. And it's really important, especially this time. Because a lot of those national elections, they're going to get nasty. The presidential election's going to get nasty, and I don't expect any side on national elections to be super nice to each other. But what really matters, and we've talked about this, the things that matter most are the local elections. The local elections matter the most. That's why we're here at WBSM, because the things that matter are the things that are closest to you: your select board race, your school committee race, your city council race, your mayor race, sheriff's race, DA's race, etc. And so you hope at the end of the day, when you have two people that have a campaign, even if it gets nasty, they can put that aside and then use their knowledge and skill set to commit to helping people in their community. That's what's really important in local politics. All right, 508-996-0500. Also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. This is South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. I'm going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Marcus, 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. Just talked a little bit about the meeting between Heroux and Hodgson today. It looks like they're moving forward in an amicable way to transition the office from Hodgson to Heroux. and that's encouraging. So looking forward to seeing how that unfolds. And, we'll definitely talk to Sheriff-elect Heroux quite a bit over his time, during his time as sheriff. I had Sheriff-elect Buckley on, Donna Buckley from the Cape, and had a really good conversation with her. You can check that out on WBSM.com. I think that race over there in Cape Cod followed similar, the parallels between the two were, there were a lot of parallels between the two, is what I'll say. And you can check that column out on WBSM.com. Donna Buckley defeated longtime state rep Tim Whalen. Again, a bloodbath for the GOP this year. They're looking for a new chair. That's the big story. You heard Amy Carnevale yesterday announce her candidacy on Howie Carr. I know Jess Machado had her on before, and she's really taken ownership of that story here at WBSM. I think she's had just about everybody on who is going to be who is putting their name in the ring to be the Mass GOP chair, and that's not something anybody can elect particularly. You can reach out to your state committee member. There's one per Senate district, and you can ask them to vote for a new chair. So, when Jess had that guy Christopher Lyon on, I thought he was really interesting last Saturday. He had a lot of really good experiences from Hanson, Massachusetts. You know who else is from Hanson is Andrew Card, who was George Bush's chief of staff. He's the guy that famously walked over to George Bush in that Florida school while he was reading a book to the school kids and whispered in his ear, America is under attack right after the towers hit on 9/11. So he was talking about his experience, and he seems very qualified. What I've said before about that, and what I'll continue to say is there needs to be a pivot, I think, in the vision for the state party. It's basically the Republicans not only lost a bunch of, 3 countywide seats that were previously held by Republicans for 20 plus years, they lost state rep seats too. They lost the Tim Whalen state rep seat down in Brewster, or that Cape area. Tim Whalen's from Brewster. It covers, I think, some of the lower Cape. So the Cape, if you don't know, Upper Cape is Bourne and like Sandwich and Falmouth. Lower Cape is like, I want to say like Barnstable, Yarmouth, Dennis, etc. And then the Outer Cape is that, other top of the arm, P-Town, Truro, etc. But that's neither here nor there. So they lost that state seat. They lost that state house seat. And now there's 2 state house seats. You heard Howie Carr talking about this yesterday, which I thought was interesting. There's 2 state house seats that are going to a recount that were previously held by Republicans. So, one is in like the Gloucester area, and there was, I guess, one of Jim Lyons, the state party chair's friends, was saying there's someone ringing the doorbell right now. I'm gonna take a quick break.
Listen to us live anywhere in the world on the WBSM app.
Hey, it's Dana Good.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals, because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Take South Coast Tonight with you wherever you go. Stream Chris and Marcus on the WBSM app or get their podcast on the app at WBSM.com. Now, Back to South Coast Tonight.
Hey, welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. That was just our engineer, Frank. He's just dropping off some equipment. So, but I wanted to check just to make sure it was, wasn't somebody who worked here that needed access. It looks like it was. So, what was I talking about? I was talking about the state GOP and sort of that's jockeying for power over there. Again, I think Jess has done a great job getting a firm grasp on that story. And it's sort of, I think it's easy to blame Jim Lyons, but I think the messaging needs to be different. I think the National Party obviously hurts Republicans here. So I think they do have to, if they want to survive, pivot to the more Baker-esque type of Republicans. And so, having a new party chair is good and necessary, I suppose. But if they're just going to put forward the same messaging that might work in Florida with Ron DeSantis or in like the Bible Belt, which is more or less what they were doing, it's not going to work. Like they had that the recount in and there's too much infighting there. They tried to run a write-in candidate against Anthony Amore. There was the 2 state rep seats up in the northern part of the state. One is Lenny Mira, who's an incumbent state rep, and he is poised to lose his seat. He's losing, basically by a few votes in the before the recount. And if the numbers hold, I think he's going to lose his seat just barely. And then in the North Shore, in the Gloucester area, there is a state rep race where I guess one of Jim Lyons' friends was telling people to write in a third-party candidate because the other candidate wasn't, I don't know, appreciably conservative or whatever. And there were 60 write-ins in that campaign, 60 write-ins, which is kind of a lot in a local state rep race, especially when state rep races are like usually a few hundred votes, 400 to 500, about a 1,000 votes, but in a race where each rep is getting like 400 some odd votes or something like that, or maybe even less. That's a lot of, that 60 write-ins is quite a bit. So if there were 60 write-ins, then that means probably some of them could have just voted for the GOP person, and that GOP person probably would have won. But as it stands with the recount, the Democrat is up by 17 votes. So Brad Jones, the minority leader in the House, he is presiding over a caucus of 29. And that will, if everything holds, be reduced to 27, and probably even more still after if they continue along this path. It's not inconceivable, right, that their caucus could get even fewer. There were 7, I think, Senate Republicans just about a few years ago, going into 2018, when Baker was last on the ballot. And if Baker was on the top of the ticket, I think those races would have changed. I think a few of those races would have changed. I think the Bristol County Sheriff's race, good chance that could have gone in a different direction in favor of Hodgson. I think Heroux even admitted that himself. There was a lot of external factors, but, I mean, he ran a really good campaign. And he's obviously a very skilled campaigner based on his electoral history. But he even said, there's a lot of things going in a certain direction, and a lot of those things broke his way. And so I think if Baker were at the top of the ticket, some of those races might have changed. The sheriff's race in Barnstable County, the DA's race wasn't even close. Rob Galaboyce had, and that DA's office in the Cape was held by a Republican for 40 years. That office, the Cape and Islands District, was actually created in 1970, 1972, or in the early 70s, and it was created by a guy named Phil Rollins. Phil Rollins had won the Southeastern District race, and Southeastern District used to cover, I think, all of Bristol County, if not most of Bristol County, but used to cover New Bedford, and it covered the Cape, And then Phil Rollins won. He beat the what was his name? Demas. He beat the guy Demas from New Bedford. Denise. I think it was Denise. He beat that guy Denise from New Bedford. And when he beat that guy Denise from New Bedford, Phil Rollins was from Mashpee. And so after he did that, he lobbied the state legislature successfully to create the Cape and Islands District, because this was all following Chappaquiddick in 1969 and all of that. And then the next year that DA lost his race, and I think he campaigned heavily on Chappaquiddick. So after he was a Republican, and so and then his deputy Michael O'Keefe held that seat since 2002. After Rollins had retired since 2002, and held it until he decided to retire this year. And then he had one of his deputies who he endorsed running that race, and the Democrat Galabois won handedly. But the sheriff's race was fairly close over there too. It was 48-52%, which isn't super, super close, but it's closer. It was close to the DA's race. So having a guy like Baker at the top of the ticket, as opposed to Jeff Deal, who ran about 25 points behind, I think, in the total. Maura Healey got 60-something% of the vote in the general election. AP didn't even bother. They called that race. AP didn't even bother. They called that race as soon as the polls closed. It was one of those elections. Those don't happen. That doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. When a race is so clearly going to go a certain way, they'll call it as soon as the polls close. And they did that. And so you because they knew. That happened. I remember that happened in South Carolina, too, the South Carolina primary. They called it for Joe Biden as soon as the polls closed because he had won, because they knew he had won so handedly. And so I think if they had a clearer vision with a candidate, if they had allowed Baker to run for a third term, which some people close to him said that he probably would have, Baker and Polito, then I think he's probably the governor still. Maura Healey's an excellent candidate, but I don't know if she jumps in the race against the most popular governor in the country, right? She might run for a third term as attorney general. And because she's got a political future, but she's not going to throw it away. So she's not going to throw it away for to run against the most popular governor in the country, right? So you might have seen a different outcome for a lot of the down ticket races, because the top of the ticket, as we said before, really does matter in these races. Campaigning against, because if you're campaigning against the guy at the top of the ticket, you're saying, this is this person's friend, they're with this person, that carries down ballot. And it did in this race, and we'd been talking about that the whole time. So the Republicans are doing what the Democrats often do, but the Democrats seem to have a little better party discipline in this area. I think the Republicans have party discipline in a lot of other areas, but in this area, Democrats, I think they do have some infighting there, but they're more or less, they're not as often cannibalizing their own base. Now, I'm in favor of progressive challenges and all that. That's how we got AOC. I'm in favor of that. And I don't really like the term purity test, because it's like saying that's what like the sort of the mainstay establishment candidates say. Oh, we're not doing purity tests, and like, yeah, to a certain extent, you have to look at it from a harm reduction perspective and say, okay, well, this person doesn't have everything that I like, but this person's going to get elected, right? And you go forward with that. I mean, I think in certain circumstances, the person that might be more quote unquote pure in terms of their party ideology would be a better candidate and could get elected. But in a lot of circumstances, you have to look at it and say, well, this person doesn't have everything I like, but this person's going to win, right? This person's going to win. And what's important is moving the needle as close to the direction that I want to go, or I want to see my party go, or my state or my country go, as opposed to, I just want somebody who has straight up all the values that I have and every single value that I have and is loyal to President Trump or is loyal to Joe Biden, whatever. I think it's obviously a much more reasonable and palatable outcome to say in a lot of circumstances, well, I just want the person that's going to most of the time vote the way that I want to vote. Now, I'm in favor of sort of, challenges from an ideological flank, obviously. I was a big Bernie Sanders guy. I like AOC. I like a lot of those progressive Democrats that have won, Cory Bush, that have successfully won Democratic primaries to the left of their Democratic opponents. But I also see the sort of the practicality in just electing people who are going to continue in that office and most of the time vote the way you want to vote, except for Joe Manchin. I couldn't care less if Joe Manchin lost in 2024. But 508-996-0500. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a break, and we'll be right back. This is South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus.
WBS.
We're closing out the first hour. Second hour, we're going to talk about some stuff with what's going on in the city council. There is a big vote today to raise pay for a lot of city workers. And, we've had Mayor Mitchell come on, talk about this issue before. He's come on. He's on me and Chris's show. He was on Tim's show. And this is a really important issue for the city to be competitive. So Council President Ian Heroux, following the meeting, is going to call in to give us an update on how that vote went and how the meeting went in general. So Council President Heroux will call in immediately after the meeting. But we're going to talk a little bit about that issue. Again, I read an excellent column by Arthur Hirsch, who does city politics now, our city government now for the New Bedford Light, was covering the sheriff's race before. So we'll talk to Ian Heroux, and I'll talk a little bit about this